Hello, and welcome back to the William Gomes podcast. I am William Gomes, and I am grateful to have you here. This series is called Reading Seminar 1 and 2 Lacan's Return to Freud Revisited. In the previous episode, we examined the distinction between knowledge, opinion, and truth in psychoanalysis. We saw why Jacques Lacan insists that analytic work cannot be grounded in doctrine or expertise, but must remain oriented toward a truth that appears indirectly and disruptively. In this episode, we turn to a text by Sigmund Freud that plays a decisive role in Lacan's rethinking of psychoanalysis. Beyond the pleasure principle, this text is often treated as speculative or marginal within Freud's work. Lacan insists on the opposite. He treats it as a turning point, one that exposes the limits of psychological and ego-centered models of psychic life. To understand why, we need to begin with what the pleasure principle is supposed to explain. The pleasure principle describes the tendency of psychic life to seek pleasure and avoid unpleasure. In its simplest form, it suggests that the psyche aims at reducing tension and restoring equilibrium. This model fits comfortably with therapeutic ideals of balance, well-being, and adaptation. It aligns with the idea that psychic life is self-regulating and oriented toward harmony. But Freud encounters a problem. Again and again, he observes phenomena that do not conform to this model. Patients repeat painful experiences, traumatic dreams return insistently. Symptoms persist even when they produce suffering rather than relief. These repetitions do not aim at pleasure. They do not restore equilibrium. On the contrary, they seem to defy the very logic the pleasure principle proposes. Freud takes this problem seriously. Rather than dismissing these phenomena as anomalies, he allows them to challenge his theoretical framework. This leads him to posit that something in psychic life operates beyond the pleasure principle. What Freud encounters here is not a secondary disturbance, but a structural feature. Repetition, in this sense, is not a failure of adaptation. It is not a habit that can be unlearned through insight or correction. It is an insistence that exceeds intention. This is the point Lacan seizes upon. For Lacan, beyond the pleasure principle reveals why ego-centered models of the psyche are fundamentally inadequate. If the psyche were organized around equilibrium and mastery, repetition would be irrational. But repetition is not irrational, it is structured. Lacan therefore treats repetition as a key to understanding the subject beyond the ego. The ego seeks pleasure, coherence, and stability. Repetition undermines all three. It returns the subject to the same impasse, the same difficulty, the same disruption, even when this return produces suffering. This is why repetition cannot be explained psychologically. Psychological models tend to interpret repetition as learned behavior, maladaptive coping, or unresolved conflict. These explanations may describe repetition, but they do not account for its insistence. Repetition persists even when the subject knows better. It persists even when insight is achieved. It persists even when it causes distress. This persistence is what interests Lacan. It shows that psychic life is not governed by the ego's aims, something else is at work. By revisiting beyond the pleasure principle, Lacan reinforces a central claim of seminars. I and two, psychoanalysis cannot be oriented toward well-being without betraying its object. If analysis aims to reduce suffering directly, it risks colluding with the ego's demand for equilibrium. In doing so, it bypasses the structural logic of repetition. This does not mean that analysis seeks suffering. It means that analysis must not treat suffering as a simple malfunction to be eliminated. Repetition forces psychoanalysis to confront the fact that psychic life does not aim at harmony. This has decisive consequences for a technique. If repetition is structural, then interpretation cannot aim at stopping it through explanation. If repetition persists beyond insight, then insight cannot be the goal of analysis. Instead, analytic work must allow repetition to be articulated in speech. Repetition appears not only in actions and symptoms, but in language. The same phrases return, the same narratives reappear, the same impasses are circled again and again. These linguistic repetitions are not failures of progress. They are the very material of analysis. Lacan insists that repetition must be listened to, not corrected. When the analyst tries to interrupt repetition by offering solutions or reassurance, they may temporarily relieve distress, but they do not touch the structure that produces repetition. By contrast, when repetition is allowed to unfold within the analytic situation, it can be encountered as such. This encounter does not dissolve repetition, but it can transform the subject's relation to it. This is a subtle but crucial point. Analysis does not promise to eliminate repetition. It allows the subject to recognize how they are caught in it. This recognition is not intellectual, it is experiential. It emerges through speech, not through explanation. This is why Lacan treats Beyond the Pleasure Principle as a foundational text for his critique of ego psychology. Ego psychology assumes that psychic life aims at mastery and adaptation. Repetition demonstrates the opposite. The ego cannot master repetition, it can only rationalize it. By taking repetition seriously, Lacan preserves Freud's most radical insight that psychic life is structured around something that does not submit to conscious control. This prepares us for the next step. If repetition exceeds pleasure and ego mastery, then we must ask how it is organized. What structure governs repetition, if not intention or habit? In the next episode, we will deepen this question by examining repetition, automatism, and structure. We will see how Lacan begins to formalize repetition as a structural logic that anticipates his later work, while remaining grounded in seminars 1 and 2. Thank you for listening. This is the William Gomes podcast. Take care of yourself, stay curious, and if you found this episode helpful, you're very welcome to follow, share, leave a comment or a rating. I'll speak with you again soon.